Welcome to the SmartKeys podcast.
We're glad you could join us.
Today, we are diving deep into what is, I think, the single most defining strategic challenge for any global business operating remotely right now, and that's compensation. It really boils down to this. When you hire someone, anyone, on a distributed team, is their pay anchored to the actual intrinsic value of the job?
You know, the skills, the output, the responsibility.
Exactly. Or is it just dictated by their physical location?
And that is the pivotal question. It's so much more than just an HR policy debate. For businesses, this is a critical strategic issue, a competitive one, and increasingly a major compliance headache.
Right.
So our mission in this deep dive is to guide you through how to evaluate these compensation choices. We're going to be focusing pretty heavily on the rise of transparency pressures and the very real legal risks involved.
And we really want to pull out some actionable insights here. We're looking at how companies can use real pay equity principles, not just to tick a box for regulators.
No, not at all.
But to actively attract and keep the best people and really secure that long-term sustainability in a distributed world. It's all about building a defensible, attractive compensation structure.
Okay, so let's unpack that foundation.
Right. So when you look at the models out there, you immediately see these two opposing strategies. You've got the Parity-First approach,
which is anchored to internal role value and consistency.
And then on the other side, you have Geo-Based Differentials, where your pay can shift based on local cost of living or the labor supply.
And, you know, it's vital to understand how the international community legally defines fairness here. We're talking about the ILO standard of equal pay for work of equal value.
And that's a really robust standard, isn't it?
It is, because it forces companies to look beyond just a job title. It mandates that you compare roles based on 4 key factors: skill, effort, responsibility, and working conditions.
And it's not just about the salary, the direct deposit each month, is it? We have to remember that remuneration is, well, it's a much bigger picture.
Oh, absolutely. When we talk about value, we are talking about total rewards. That means your base wage, bonuses, any allowances, your benefits package, and, crucially, equity awards.
All of it.
The whole picture. If a company is truly reviewing fairness, they have to look at everything.
Yeah.
Because that's what determines an employee's overall financial security and, frankly, their perceived value.
This whole global push for parity is so necessary because of this just enduring reality of the gender pay gap. The data is still so jarring.
It really is.
I mean, women globally still earn roughly 77 cents for every dollar men make.
Which leads to that overall 20% worldwide gender pay gap.
Yeah.
And this is exactly why the remote era is either a great equalizer or a huge risk. Remote work gives employers this amazing flexibility to hire from anywhere but.
There's a big but.
A very big but. If they just default to geo-based pay, they risk allowing all these existing disparities to just carry over or even get worse within their distributed teams.
How so?
Well, if those location adjustments aren't done transparently or, applied unevenly, underrepresented groups might find themselves consistently benchmarked against the lowest cost markets.
So, okay, for anyone listening who's tasked with designing or maybe auditing a compensation structure, let's break down the strategic trade-offs of these two models. What about Parity First?
The Parity-First model is a massive win for internal equity.
Okay.
It promotes consistency. It drastically reduces the risk of having those really difficult-to-explain pay gaps, and it's often much better for long-term retention.
Because everyone feels valued for the work, not where they live.
Exactly. They feel valued relative to their peers.
But I imagine it can also be very expensive, right? I mean, paying a San Francisco salary to someone in Lisbon, for example.
That's the trade-off, yeah. Geo-based differentials, they help control the budget.
Yeah.
They align spending with specific local labor market realities.
Which makes sense from a purely financial perspective.
It does.
Yeah.
But, as we just discussed, the moment you introduce those regional gaps, you have to manage the perception of fairness very, very carefully. Otherwise, you risk alienating key talent who feel their output is worth more than their local cost of living says it is.
So for you, the professional listening to this, you really need to know how your employer is fundamentally benchmarking your role.
Yes.
Is it purely market data? Or are they valuing your specific skills and internal consistency?
A critical question to ask.
Let's shift gears then. Let's talk about the pressure cooker of compliance and transparency, because this is what's driving immediate change. It's not just a nice to have anymore.
No, it's rapidly becoming the cost of doing business internationally.
Yeah.
The strategic shift here is just profound. Companies can no longer simply say they're fair.
You have to prove it.
They have to be able to audit and prove it with defensible metrics. And that level of scrutiny means organizations have to move, like right now, to map all their core roles using a consistent scorecard.
Based on those 4 factors you mentioned.
Skill, effort, responsibility, and working conditions. If you can't justify pay differences using those 4 factors, you are exposed.
And the European Union is undoubtedly leading the regulatory charge on this.
Oh, for sure.
What are the key directives that global companies really need to be watching?
Okay, so the 2 biggest seismic shifts are the P-Transparency Directive and the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, or CSRD.
And the CSRD is the big one, right? It's massive.
It is massive in scope. It requires over 50,000 EU and non-EU firms to start reporting rigorously on environmental, social, and governance factors, ESG.
And what does that mean specifically on the pay front?
Right. So under specific sections of the CSRD, its ESRS 1 and 2 companies must publicly report on gender equality and equal pay metrics.
So this is moving from internal HR spreadsheets to mandatory
Auditable statements. It fundamentally changes the risk profile of noncompliance.
That scale of reporting is going to create ripple effects everywhere. Meanwhile, in the United States, we're seeing a much more fragmented state-by-state push for transparency.
It is fragmented, but the urgency is just as high.
Yeah.
The U.S. landscape is shifting incredibly fast, and it's underpinned by the EEOC's 2024 to 2028 plan, which explicitly targets discriminatory pay practices.
So you have the federal focus, and then you have all these different state laws.
Exactly. You couple that federal pressure with this growing number of state-level transparency rules, like requiring salary ranges and job listings, and companies are now legally compelled to rigorously document every single compensation decision they make.
So vagueness is no longer an option.
Not at all. It's a liability.
So for a big multinational, trying to navigate all this must be a nightmare. Do you centralize your HR data, or do you localize compliance?
It has to be a hybrid governance model.
Okay.
You need centralized reporting, for sure. You need that to maintain consistency across the entire organization, to give leadership clear dashboards to track the overall pay gap.
But you can't just apply a single global rule.
No, that has to be paired with local execution. You still need local teams to ensure you're adhering to country-specific employment laws and any sectoral mandates. The key takeaway here is the absolute necessity of robust governance.
Now that we've laid out the regulatory landscape, I think we have to ask the critical strategic question. Why do these gaps still persist? Even with good intentions and all this compliance pressure, it feels like the problem is structural, not just behavioral.
That's where the data becomes really humbling. We have to look beyond policy to these societal barriers. The source material points to 3 major structural causes. The first, and maybe the most significant, is unpaid care.
Unpaid care?
Yes. Women, on average, still perform about 2.5 to 3 more hours of unpaid care per day than men do.
That's an incredible figure. And that time deficit has a direct, tangible career consequence.
A huge one. The time limits continuous work, it interrupts career progression, reduces access to training, and ultimately it results in what we call the motherhood penalty.
Which leads to lower lifetime earnings, fewer promotions.
Right. And then the second barrier is occupational segregation. Women are disproportionately concentrated in lower paid sectors like care, education, and informal employment, which just artificially skews overall earnings down.
And finally, that persistent, frustrating element of, well, human judgment.
Precisely. The third barrier is subtle and overt bias. It's embedded in hiring and evaluation practices, and it creates these unexplained disparities that no amount of data on location or experience can fully account for.
So if those are the structural realities we're all fighting against, then the employer playbook has to be designed as a direct, evidence-led counterattack.
It has to be.
Let's walk through the 4 essential actions that companies need to take right now to design fair, compliant remote pay.
Okay, action number 1.
Maybe.
Be proactive and measure regularly.
You can't fix what you can't see.
Exactly. You can't fix what you don't accurately diagnose. And this means moving beyond basic spreadsheets and using tools like multiple regression analysis.
Why multiple regression specifically? What does that do?
Because it's really the only way to separate all the factors reliably. It lets you isolate and account for the legitimate variables like someone's role, their experience, their location, so that what remains
Is the unexplained part.
is the unexplained disparity. And that unexplained portion is your target. That's where you find bias and structural inequality. Once you identify those gaps, you have to budget targeted adjustments to close them.
That makes perfect sense. You're separating correlation from causation. Okay, what's next?
Action 2. Prevent new inequities. This is all about putting up guardrails to stop bias before it even starts.
Proactive, not reactive.
Yes. The strategy here is standardization. Standardize your job postings, standardize promotion criteria, standardize salary ranges. But the real game changer is using pre-approval tooling for offers and promotions.
So what does that look like in practice?
It allows HR to stop bias in real time before a biased decision becomes an entrenched, expensive, and legally risky compensation gap.
That real-time intervention is so essential, especially in a fast-moving, remote world where managers are making offers across different countries. Which brings us right to the hottest topic in HR transparency.
That's our third action. Be transparent with intent. Transparency is just not optional anymore. It's a competitive advantage.
Right.
Companies need to strategically decide what information they're going to share. And the business impact is just undeniable. We see that posting salary ranges and job listings can boost your applicant volume by an astonishing 50%.
50%? That's incredible.
It is. Workers trust openness, and it drastically improves the perception of fairness.
And finally, this can't just be a one-time project.
No, absolutely not. That's action 4. Communicate and measure. This involves training your managers, and I don't just mean giving them a policy document. It means providing them with FAQs and scripts so they can handle these sensitive compensation conversations accurately and with empathy. Then, you have to set clear KPIs and timelines for sustained progress. If you treat pay equity as a one-off audit, you will fail. It has to be an ongoing commitment.
This brings us toward the end of our deep dive. I mean, the strategic lesson for any organization seems pretty clear. First, make your foundational decision parity or geo-based. Then, commit to measuring often and acting decisively on that data. Fairness isn't just a compliance burden. It's a strategic advantage that strengthens morale, reduces turnover, and ensures long-term sustainability.
And we really have to recognize the immense scale of this problem. When you look at the global data, the source highlights a very sobering fact. Closing the worldwide gender pay gap at the rate we're going could theoretically take centuries.
Centuries? That's a chilling thought.
It is. And that reality makes steady, evidence-led steps essential now. For employers, the simplest path to a defensible position is making transparency and routine, sophisticated audit non-negotiable tools in your management framework.
So what does this all mean for you, the individual professional trying to navigate this remote working world? We know that geo-based pay can unintentionally widen disparities, especially if, for example, professionals who identify as women are overrepresented in lower-cost locations.
It's a real risk.
So if you are negotiating your pay in a globally distributed company, how are you actively documenting your own skills and value your role equity? Not just relying on the location where you happen to sit to ensure you receive consistent total rewards against your internal peers. That is the strategic thought we want to leave you with today. Thank you so much for tuning in to the SmartKeys podcast for this deep dive into global pay parity and the future of remote compensation.
And if you want to review the exact metrics and that actionable playbook we discussed, just remember that the full article guide is a really comprehensive resource designed to help you implement these strategic changes.
You can find the link to the full guide right there in the show notes. Please make sure you subscribe to the SmartKeys podcast for more actionable insights on the future of work and productivity. We'll see you next time.